Hi, we're Team Origin, and our app today is ByteScan AI. I'm Anand.
I'm Keshav. I'm Hanson.
And I'm Liam. Okay, so let's talk about the problems surrounding just bugs in general. So there's like a lot of harmful things that come because of them. Approximately 5% of all bugs are venomous, and we don't exactly know which kinds of bugs are venomous, which kinds of bugs are dangerous. And since there are like quadrillions and quintillions of bugs all around the world, it's impossible for us to memorize or learn this information. Because of this, we created an app that both identifies bugs and checks to see if the bite is dangerous. Along with this, one of our next steps is to provide remedies to fix or heal the bug bites.
So our solution came in two parts. The first part is insect detection, which we didn't get to implementing, but it was essentially like you could take a picture of an insect, like say, for example, you couldn't find a bug bite, but you knew where the insect was and you saw it like somewhere in your house. Then from there, we could detect the insect and determine if it was venomous. And the other aspect of our app was just bite detection. And from that aspect, it would allow you to take a photo of a bug bite and it would tell you whether or not, like, it would tell you where the bug bite came from and what steps you could take to remedy the issue.
So as you can see here, our UI has two main buttons, and we made them take up the full screen because in the case of an emergency, we want to make it as fast as possible to access each feature. And so we'll do a quick demo with the bite button. So I can just click the bite button and take a photo. And so it identified it as a mosquito bite in this case.
Where did you get a mosquito?
So yeah, was it a mosquito bite? Do you know?
Yeah.
Yes, there were two mosquitoes last night in my room. So it's highly suspected that it's a mosquito bite.
All right, so story checks out. All right, so yeah, this is image we took. All right, Hanson, you want to talk about some next steps?
The next steps that we want to implement are medication suggestions, which is when you click the buttons, after it identifies the insect, it suggests you some medications and a more accurate model. This is basically more training for the AI and the actual release.
One thing to clarify, what we did so far is we took an existing image model and then we fine-tuned it on a lot of like our own data. But the only problem was that the model itself was really small and unreliable, and so we had a little bit of issues regarding, I guess, accuracy. And so we'd like to take a bigger model maybe next time and then fine-tune it. All right, thank you for listening. Any questions? Yeah.
Sure. Did you develop your own AI model, or did you use like a specific LLM? And what kind of data, other than this website, did you use for training?
So on some websites we found online, we were able to download a set that had testing and text identifications. And so we trained a TensorFlow network with like 2 layers after an existing image model. And we essentially just fine-tuned the last few layers of the image model as well as the 2 layers after that and used that as our net. But since the set only had 500 images and we weren't even able to get to all of them due to time constraints, it ended up not being very accurate. So that's something we hope to improve in the future.
Suggestion, you go to Papers with Code and look for insect bites or insects, there's a sample data set with 75,000 labeled images you can use. And you might not need to classify every insect. You might want to have just the poisonous ones and discriminate those. The 95% that are non-poisonous, just respond with safe or something like that, and still have an unknown category if you don't classify.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion.
I can show you the site later.
Sure.
For the advanced teams, we'll be enforcing the limit more. I guess you guys have probably been on stage before, so we'll tell you when you guys are like overtime.
Yeah.
And then on the side here, when you have 2 minutes left, we'll put the finger as number 2. If you have 1 minute left, we'll put 1, and then at 10 seconds, we'll do a countdown.
As an audience.
Hello everyone and welcome to the presentation of Cognito AI. We are building a tool which is an advanced AI interview platform. So let's talk about the problems that we aim to solve. First of all, manual interviews are very time consuming. And there is undeniable human bias in any type of manual interview. Apart from that, there is a huge logistical burden whenever we try to scale the problem. And in the end, we do have inconsistent interview quality. Different type of people take different interviews and have different responses to all types of answers. So how do we solve this? We solve this using Cognito AI. Cognito AI provides users with structured behavioral as well as technical interviews. Apart from that, it also provides users with AI assessments as well as detailed reports. So how do we do this? This is a simple backend flow of our application. We start off with the recruiter adding a config file with information about the type of qualities that they are looking for in their potential candidate. After this, the information gets stored in a vector DB, after which our HR agent, we have a multi-agentic system, so we are using an HR agent to design the interview questions. After this, we have a loop or a cycle of approval in which the HR agent talks to the recruiter and gets the questions approved, after which we have an interview created with a shareable link to the candidate. And this is the candidate flow. The candidate starts by uploading their resume, which is then parsed, and all of the details are passed to the resume agent. The resume agent then goes through the company's profile along with the job description to identify if the candidate has been approved or rejected. After this, an AI voice-based interview is conducted by the interviewer agent. The interviewer agent asks questions about behavioral interviews. And if the recruiter has the coding assessment option selected in, we do have a lead code style coding interview within the web app as well. And once both the interviews are over, we create the analyzer agent basically generates a detailed candidate report. So the target market that we are targeting over here are not just startups, but SMEs as well as career accelerators. We know that whenever an engineer is hired, let's say with a salary of $120K, $24,000 goes to these hiring or recruitment firms. We are trying to target this with a small and simple business model, which is $299 per month for startups for up to 30 interviews. And after that, we have a tiered pricing for larger organizations, which goes pay per interview per candidate. And this is how we do our market analysis. Cognito AI is the only fully AI-led platform offering behavioral assessments, technical assessments, along with evaluations through AI and instant reports. This is how we compare against most of the popular interview platforms. And now we'll have a small demo.
So hi guys, I'll give a small demonstration of the application. Due to time constraint, I won't be able to cover all the features. For more details, you can visit our website. It's hosted. We can share the details if needed. Yes. Sorry, we can share the details if needed. So this is the landing page, which has all of our contact information. I'll jump directly to the screen, which is present to the hiring firm. So the hiring firm has a dashboard where they can create as many interviews as they want with the config file, which we specified before. Inside those config files, they can design specific interviewers with specified personality. For example, their empathy, exploration, rapport, or speed. And all of these things reflect when the actual interview is being taken by the AI agent. Next, they can create any amount of questions or assessments, which are all lead code style questions for the user's coding assessment. So it's also inbuilt as a replacement for lead code or HackerRank platforms like those. So I'll open an interview to show you guys how this works. So let me go to an interview. The HR agent or the interviewer can share this link with any of the interviewee. I can add a email. So once I start the interview, an AI agent with proper voice support will have a conversational interview with me on the basis of the config file, on the basis of their personality, and on the basis of the requirements present in our vector DB. So right now, as I'm speaking, the interviewer is picking up those as well. But if I would not be speaking, I could have a proper conversation with them, like if I stop now. Yeah, so I'll move ahead because lack of time.
You're not able to hear the audio because the laptop's too low, but it speaks and you can listen.
Yeah, it also identifies tab switching. And once it's done, I can move into a lead code based style coding interview. Once I complete this coding interview, all of these information with the personality, coding interview round, all the different scores are present in the dashboard, which can be then viewed by the interviewer or the HR agency who is creating these interviews. So every single person who gave this interview, all of their details, their overall score, behavioral score, communication score, as well as a proper detailed report is stored within. And then the HR agency or the interviewer can perform selection or rejection on the basis of this. This does a compilation of all the people you have selected, put on hold, rejected with the email system inbuilt. So that's all, and this is like a proper detailed report for everything which happened in the interview.
So that's all. This is our team. I'm Ashish. I'm an ex-CMU student and alumni right now. This is Anurag. He's a student. So thank you. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
Do you have any identity checking? Sometimes when people are being interviewed, especially if they're overseas, they want to get a snapshot of the face or maybe the ID so that they don't have someone else in the
As of now, we don't have that because we didn't have enough time. But what we are working on is a fully video-based interview platform, so that we can basically try and read the expressions as well, monitor the eye movements, so that we can see. What we're trying to do is to create an anti-cheating tool or a platform where it's difficult for a student to use other type of platforms or tools like tab switching, eye monitoring, eye motion, the time between answering questions. So we have those parameters set. We just haven't implemented those features yet. But those are, yeah, tab switching is implemented, but the other features are work in progress. Yes.
A lot of the lead code style questions, the way they're judged is based on how the user progressed through the question and the thought process behind their solution. How are you judging that through AI?
Yeah, as of now, we are not judging the exact flow in which the user is answering the lead code questions. In fact, I wouldn't even call them proper lead code questions because then it will again be cheatable. The questions which are being generated in lead code style are done by another AI agent and which takes up any existing question. And with the question, we have Tably AI to find out the answers connected to that. And then we see the user's answer and connect it with the existing answers, but we do not see the step-by-step thinking process of the user. So that entire interview process monitoring is something which we have in mind in for future versions.
Right now, it just works like an online assessment that you
Yes.
send candidates.
Yes.
Follow up to that, there is a company called Interview Gods. I didn't see that on your chart, which
So
they're doing the exact same thing. So how are you unique to it?
we are not aware of this company, so we'll add them to the list of competitors.
Yes.
Thank you.
So interviews go both ways. The candidate is also judging the company and the employer. How do you think about making sure you have a good impression on the candidate?
As of now, again, because we didn't have a lot of time, the interviewee side is completely through a URL-based stub, so they do not have a lot of information. Right now, we presume that information is taken care by the HR agency, whoever is sharing this interview. But with time, we'll incorporate all of those features into this. We are planning for a full complete dashboard on the user's end as well, not just in the interviewer's end.
So whenever an interview is created, the person who's creating the recruiter basically gets to input the job description, the company information, basically all of the information that a recruiter sends to the candidate about the company, the position, the salary, expected salary, type of work, if it's work from home or everything. So what we're trying to do is that after this is done, we'll make sure that we give the interviewee 2 minutes to ask questions to our assistant or the chatbot as well, where they can ask clarifying questions. And if the bot doesn't have an answer to that, it can generate another report, which will be sent to the recruiter, who can then separately send answers via email or on the dashboard, presumably. Yeah.
Thank you. So I work for 84.ai. We have an exact similar product, and many Fortune 500 companies are already our customers for using the same thing. It's good that you guys are thinking about it. So I'll probably ask a technical question, right? So when you have this agent most of the time it is a long running agent, right? So it is not a synchronous agent. So sometimes recruiting can take days. So how are you guys designing a long running agent?
Yeah, we do not have one single agent which is a long running agent. We have an MAS system, which is a multi-agent system working on Creo AI. So every single agent has its own asynchronous task. For example, the agent which takes in all the information of the company and creates the vector DB is one agent. One of the agent is only there for taking up the interviews. There's another agent which is there for creating the lead code questions, another one for analyzing the answer. And finally, once all of these agents, once they are done, we have a shared place where all of these agents dump their final information. And then we have one final agent which creates the dashboard view for the recruitment agency or the interviewer. So that agent fetches all of this information, which was being generated asynchronously by the other agents, and then creates a report on the basis of these information which it has collected. So there's no one long running agent. All of them work separately, asynchronously with a shared piece of information, just like I would say uh, Kafka task list.
Got it. Any framework you guys are using for that?
For the front end, we are using Next.js.
Just the agentic framework.
Creo AI, we are using Creo AI.
Thank you.
I'll just get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time for listening to our presentation. We're building a very simple application within the 3-hour framework of this hackathon for a AI food assistant. So this happened to me personally a lot. So I was trying to gain 10 pounds of muscle, and after 1 week of hard working on a gym, I just kind of gave up because I stop tracking how many food I'm going to take, and eating healthy food is very painful for me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people have the similar situation before, and you forgot what you actually was eating last week. And there was a saying in Chinese that if you want to build your body, there's 70% of is basically just eating, and 30% is actually working. So based on that, we really want to build an application that you can simply upload an image of your daily meal, that you can analyze what food you're taking, the nutrition ingredients behind it, and keep track of all the amount of food and that feature your goal. And based on our basic research today, bodybuilding or related gyms market is very crucial in the United States, which contains more than 100 billion US dollar based on 2024, and which contains a lot of different factors such as nutrition supplements, gym equipment, and etc. And with the simple add-on with our application, that people by simply taking a picture of our daily meal, which is very happens a lot. Some friends, they're like, hey, stop eating, I gotta take a picture and post it on my Instagram. So that's gonna be very easy for that. With that being said, let's talk about our features.
Yeah, I can agree more. I'm actually pre-diabetic, so it's really important for me to keep track of what I'm eating every day. So let's just quickly go over the features. So as you can see here, we can drag a picture or upload a picture to our website. Our app also works on our phone as well. So and then we can click the analyze food here, and then the AI will analyze the food, and we have the food details here to show the calories, protein, carbs, and fat. Also some side notes from the AI, and there's also a history button that it keeps track of all the thing you upload before. But also we also have a report, and it shows how many calories and all the other ingredients you take during the day. So for the future, we will add if the food contains any allergies, or if it's vegan free, or it has some how much the sugar is, which I think is really important for people who cares about sugar intake.
Okay, and one last thing I want to show is that this being website also works on your phone or any other device. In fact, I'm gonna just as a quick demo, I have my phone here. I'm gonna take a picture, see of these cookies over here. And I can upload it from here. Although this is a pretty bad picture. Let's see if it works. Yeah, that picture's not good enough. Yeah, maybe I get the one off. Okay, okay, it's fine. We got it. So, if I refresh here, so yeah, it gives the quick details. For example, this is not healthy, right? It's a chocolate chip cookie, and it would also show up in our history and also in our report. Okay, so any questions? One thing to add, sorry. Some future add-ons for this feature is like we can make it also connected to social networks, so people can compete with each other. But who is having a healthier lifestyle? So you know, I don't. People like me don't give up using this app. And yeah, I think that's it.
One of the most challenging things with food tracking apps is scanning multiple food items in the same way. How do you think you'll solve that problem?
So like scanning multiple food items in the same picture.
So a plate of food usually, right?
Well, I do have an example of a bento box here, I guess. This was one of the test pictures here, so a lot of stuff. Now it will analyze this as one dish, but it will add up everything together in it. For example, right, it will say we have like pork and then we have rice, have salad, vegetables, and it would also, well, this counts up everything in this dish, right? And then it will in this notes, it might sometimes like break it down specifically into what is healthy, what is not healthy. Like the rest of this dish is healthy, but maybe you know the fried part isn't, right? So I believe that's what it's saying, yeah.
How do you calibrate? You're estimating calories. How do you know what the ground truth is for a given dish? Is one question. And the second question is, how do you calibrate pixels per centimeter to know the serving size?
So we're not okay. So we're not going. So that's maybe a future we'll kind of think about it. Maybe we'll put in a weight of the food if they can get it. But for now, it is just
simply we take a picture and we will and we ask the backend, which is ChatGPT, to analyze it.
How are you guys different from the competitors that are doing this already?
Well, I mean, I don't think we saw any competitors right now. I mean, we haven't really looked up other apps that really did this.
Yeah. So some additional feature will be like adding a social feature, and also we're trying to do like multi agents as well. Like we wanted to build a AI assistant that like can see okay, today you like, because like you are just uploading the food, you can give a suggestions saying like you didn't meet your goal, and tomorrow you may have to give it back. Like you have to eat more food or less food in the long run. Maybe more comfortable. Look at Cal AI. There.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to tell you that last night I couldn't fall asleep because I was dealing with an issue that I know every single one of us deal with. I was thinking about how do we scale cloud for our largest company. All right, jokes aside, I knew this would be a perfect joke for especially those young people in the back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a real issue across enterprises, right? We want to be able to look at cloud infrastructure and have people understand what's going on. Cloud infrastructure is intimidating. This is an image of VPCs that are in an AWS account. If I told you you had to update a subnet, if I told you you have to update a route, and if you make a mistake, this could let in a bad actor. This could destroy production. Would you feel comfortable doing that? It's very tough to say, but this is an issue that many people have to deal with day to day. They have the knowledge of what they're doing, but they don't know cloud infrastructure. So cloud should be an enabler, not a gatekeeper. What we've done is we've built out a system that allows you to generate Terraform code based on your cloud provider. That way you're managing infrastructure as code. You want to have infrastructure aware AI so that you can start to generate Terraform code based on your specific infrastructure. And then have AI do a review of best practices in security. Now, that's a lot and big for a scope, especially when we have limited time. But we were able to do this step here, this natural language to Terraform generation.
So now we can go ahead and give a demo of what we've been working on. So like I said, we want to have contextually aware AI when you're generating Terraform code, whether you're adding on to it or you're generating it from scratch. And so what we did was we built a lane chain agent that helps to generate Terraform code. It's context aware of any Terraform code that you already have, but if you don't have it, it can also help you generate it from scratch. So if I wanted to generate Terraform code, let's say that could help put something on AWS and have that be like a Lambda function, I could do that here. So
Control plus could help with readability.
Yeah, that's true.
all right, so once it runs the agent, so once it runs the agent, you can actually go ahead and look at the files to see if they're somewhat reasonable and if there's any typos. Okay, yeah. And then you can go ahead and apply that. So let's see, what was the hello world folder? And so in the actual agent, when it's generating code, in order to validate that it's generating code that actually makes sense, we have a loop where it just gets feedback and sees whether or not that code makes sense. And then if it doesn't, tries to regenerate it until it gets something that the LLM believes is somewhat sufficient for whatever the prompt was.
Yeah, and you can see here that Terraform has been run in the background. It's generating 9 different resources to be able to deploy that AWS, the Lambda function. It decided, okay, we need an API gateway to be able to expose an API endpoint to this. And so if I say yes here, it'll deploy in an AWS account. And I wonder, we have AWS. Are we at time? Okay. Yeah, so just wanted to show you real quick that if we refresh here, now we have that API exposed and it's in AWS. So if you wanted to do a post, you could do that and then it will tell you hello world. But yeah, it was just to be able to allow people to use cloud resources, especially if they're not cloud experts, and do so in a manner that is best practice. Infrastructure as code is best practice. So just enabling that for everybody to start the future and be able to get everybody using cloud resources. Thank you.
Yes. So I feel like AWS today has more products than Walmart, right? So do you have ideas on how your product can help users pick maybe a cloud service provider or a particular product that is the cheapest?
So that
it's a great point.
Yeah, it's a great point. That was something that we were thinking of, and actually we wanted to include within this project itself. We wanted to have a cost estimator. Full disclosure, I work as a consultant doing cloud migration. That's a question we get asked a lot. How do we make our workflow the most cost effective, most secure? And so we wanted to include that, but we didn't get around to it, but to be able to do cost estimation across cloud providers for specific resources.
Very cool.
You'll be the fourth member.
Yes. How do you plan to productize this as a separate service?
Yeah, there are a couple ways to think about it. We'd love to be able to do that. We've thought about also having this as even if we were building on top of like VS Code as like kind of an extension that helps you write the code along with it. Because that's another thing is being able to have enterprises use this type of code. We want to be able to allow them the best opportunity to do so. But we would love to be able to launch this as a separate product that enterprises can use, especially when we talk about AI and we're going to have their entire infrastructure known to whatever system that we're using. We want to make sure it's secure. We wanted to make sure it's the best practice. So having it kind of isolated is probably the most ideal. Hope that answered your question.
I'm not an infra expert. How do I know that your generated code is actually safe and save me money while it's running?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that we wanted to support. We deal with this a lot on my side when I'm working with these my clients. People that know security very well, but they don't know exactly if what they're going to be generating is best practice. Ideally, you have some workflow and some process in place for review and generation of whenever you are submitting that code, you get your PRs reviewed and you have that system in place that it can be reviewed by a cloud engineer that does know, hey, this is not doing as you're expecting. But at least you can say, if you're a network person, you can say, well, this CIDR block is right. Well, I know that I did want to create this subnet, this type of, those types of things you can validate on screen, but for checking if Terraform's the best practice and secure, you would still probably need some cloud engineer to be able to review the code in the background.
Okay. So you still differentiate between the codes that when the code, there are a lot of code editors, right? Nowadays, you can have your rule. Like I have a dedicated, I have my organization, I have a set of policies. I can set up policies like that. How do you differentiate yourself from these editors? That would be always challenging, right? Like every organization has some policies and rules, and these editors use your easier way to apply this. Now with these new tools, how do you compete with those two?
Yeah. Did you want to?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would even go as far as to say that this isn't, it looks like an editor, but it's not trying to be an editor primarily. It does have a focus on using the agentic tools embedded in the editor that are specific to Terraform and it's essentially trying to work specifically with cloud infrastructures, all the different kinds of providers, and make sure that those are the things that are at the forefront of any code generation and any text that's actually in this editor and in these codes. So it's very specific.
That's what it's for, maybe that's for.
How infrastructure context aware do your natural language prompts have to be? Have you done any analysis to see if your results get better if your prompts are more context aware of infra users?
So we haven't done any analysis to see if elongating the context actually does provide better results. But I mean, my assumption is that it would. Most LLMs will do better with more context tokens, and more information. So if it's already aware of, for instance, your Terraform state, it's going to be able to provide like new resources that are consistent with what you already have in the cloud. And so I would say context, it's a pretty sure bet that more context is going to help. Now, how do you integrate established Terraform inside of any sort of request that you send to this agent? That's a bit of a more difficult question. Like you have to be able to determine which questions kind of require an overview of all of the files and which questions just kind of require less context. And that's more of a dynamic process. So that would be something that we could have an agent node determine.
Thanks. That answers my question. But as a follow-up, the reason I asked this was because you said your agentic flow was, your synthesizer itself was context aware in terms of your infra, right?
Yeah.
So does it help you like make your infrastructure more configurable or more efficient? In that case, can it point out mistakes in your existing infra configurations?
It doesn't yet. That would be such a great a thing to do, to be able to point out some key infrastructure issues. That's one of the things that we had mentioned is like a security best practice as well, right? If you're generating new IAM policies. We don't want to have stars in the policies. We don't want to have or we don't want to have quad zero security groups going out that allows ingress and egress traffic. So if you already have that in your code, do we have something in place to kind of not just generate new code, but point some of those things out would be a great suggestion to add. Yeah.
I think we're, all right, do you have a question?
If you have time.
Yeah, sure, last.
Just wanted to piggyback off this question. A lot of it first created with quality attributes in mind, which are very business specific. Have you guys thought about that route? And how you would prompt, I guess, the system, how would the system know what the business wants in the future?
Yeah, that's a big portion of like my job as a consultant is like understanding where's the company going, not just where they're at right now. That would ideally be something that we can implement within something when we start to think about Terraform generation. How are we writing out the Terraform so that it's also scalable in that manner? It's a great suggestion to include in certainly feedback that we'll take for new features. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I start our presentation, let me first ask you guys a question. Is there anyone of you play instrument or is a musician? Please raise your hand. I see a lot. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that if you play instrument, then you're gonna counter these problems. Like, have you ever dealt with the artist block, which is you kind of don't understand some music theories? And if you wanted to experience with some new genre or the instruments, or if you want to play with a band. So my personal experience is that when I first came to CMU, I post a message on our Slack channel asking that if there's anyone wants to play band with me, and no one get response. I guess maybe a lot of people in CMU are just software engineers, I would say. So to solve that problem, we create an app. It's a virtual band. So I will hand over to Selena and talk more about the feature.
Right, so we have a virtual band to which you upload either a recording that you already prepared on your computer, or you can record it live. And then you can select the genre that you prefer, as well as input lyrics, time, and BPM. And then in our workflow, the AI, it generates a backing track for each instrument, lyric, and album art, so that you get inspired or sort of can have an environment where you have a virtual band when you have a situation like Vincent.
Okay, so we have a live demo, and I think a good point to also talk about is that the point of this app is not necessarily to just generate music, because a lot of that is available already, but it's part of the accompaniment, which kind of empowers artists who may be lacking like maybe people to do something with, or just want something to kind of like demo with. So in this instance, I have in fact a recording that Vincent handed me of his own guitar playing, and not to put you on the spot, but yeah, so. Okay, so small demo, and then you have your selections for what genre you want it to be in, how long you want this demo to be, or and then a couple other instances there. And through the API call, we're able to generate both album art as well as music fitting the specifications that you need. Okay, so there are a couple things that obviously still need to be implemented here, because we wanted to make sure that you have the individual tracks generated for whatever it is that you need. The music that we have generated here is from APIs that are already available that kind of generate everything in totality. But the point, of course, is to make sure that you have more minute control over what it is that you want to add to whatever creative exploration that you're going through at the moment. I can go through like a live demonstration, but that will take a while. So I think that maybe in parallel, we can take some Q&A as that is going on in the background. That's okay.
Last one. I'm a musician. I play 6 instruments, but I can only play one at a time.
What are you guys' ideas about multi-track or like collaborating with other people?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I think there's a lot of big pieces of extension that we think that can be included here because this is just like a smaller demonstration of what is kind of available, right? In terms of scalability, having multiple tracks that you can upload to also like kind of play along with is like the most ideal. I think in the kind of like the workflow here, once you are supplied, like vocals and drums and you're playing guitar, for instance, like being able to play those while you do your own guitar gives you kind of more leeway to maybe experiment with like, for instance, like new chords or a new, progression that you want to try alongside what you already have supplied in. Yeah. Let's see.
Any other question?
Think about integrations to like SoundCloud or something to sell your music.
That is definitely an angle shoot. I guess there are definitely things to consider when some of the rest of this is like generated through AI, and I think there's a lot of like ethical questions for that. And I think the point of something like this is just to kind of get you started on something you explore. So yeah, we want to make sure that's focused on like the creator who is trying to maybe take new directions, stuff like that.
I would say that the key point of the music is like person, right? So it's kind of a soul interaction with the music. So this season is just gonna be an entry point if you want to improvise some music or maybe create some new music product. Or maybe in my situation, I just want to play in a band. I can have some virtual band tracks here that I can play along with. Or maybe in the future, we can generate some, some AI generated videos that mimic the scene like you are playing in the public. So that's the other features. But I would say like the key point of the music is the soul. So you have to, the AI is never gonna replace human for music creation, I would say. So you're gonna. Question?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting application that I agree with you completely. Like AI is about management and music, one main thing is creating the pop, which left musicians are more time focused with, after more focused on creating their solo pieces. So this is definitely a very key application. My question is that I actually did a research project on this 2 years ago on the same exact topic, which is generating polyphonic music with MDRN, which is a multi-directional recursion network. And the reason why is because we recognize that traditional LSTM architecture for generating music often emulates similar patterns of the piece that you provide when you try to create something that's for it. Therefore, I was very curious, what kind of model did you guys use? Did you guys use a free-trained model, open source model, or did you guys did some like inferences for fine-tuning or whatever? And also, what architecture was it? Because like the standard one made by Google. What was that one? Oh yeah, the Magenta AI made by Google or the Sono AI made by MIT. They both had like issues with repetitiveness after a certain breakpoint was reached.
Okay, so our product and our idea was just brainstorming during our hackathon time, which is just like 3-4 hours. And our solution so far is just calling the other models API, which is called diff rhythm and well, the window. Yeah. We have that. Hold on. Yeah, so the model we are using is other people's pre-trained music generation models. But if you want to have some, non-repeatable patterns or maybe some, the music that will fit your taste, I would suggest our next step is to fine-tune the models to be, more focused on this purpose.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, I did a little bit of research because obviously there has been some exploration of like, using AI to generate music, and it's very limited. I think even within like the API that we were calling, there's also a limit to how long each piece you can upload is. I think Sony is currently working on something that is more in line with what we were talking about, generating accompaniments. It's called like diff riff, but for like many reasons, obvious reasons, probably proprietary reasons too, none of that is publicly available yet. So I think that especially if you want to generate, like for instance, just drums, right? The challenge is most likely going to be the data set that you're trying to get and train the model on. And we'll see what happens in the next few years and see if there's more exploration down that space, down that line.
Does anyone actually know their carbon footprint? And does anyone know what a sustainable carbon footprint is? All right, so if you answer no, to any of these questions, chances are that begs the question that like, how do you know you're not destroying the environment, right? And so for that exact reason, we created
Easy Emissions. Basically, it's a website that helps you track your emissions with the big three of a regular person's daily routine. First is your vehicle. How many emissions are you producing going to and from work? And then after that is meat. Because what a lot of people don't know is meat production and just eating meat can indirectly actually cause a lot of carbon emissions being emitted. Then lastly is electricity. But aside from that, I know we're pressed on time, so I'm gonna go to the next slide. For our website, we used JavaScript, CSS, and HTML for the front end. And for the back end, we used Python, which connected to the Llama API. And this is essentially what our website looks like. We're going to have a demo here with Stanley later. Although, yeah, there's essentially a pie chart that breaks down your carbon emissions and your carbon footprint. Although after that, there is one part and one point I kind of want to drive in. Even though this seems pretty simple, there's one point, which is even though our title is easy emission, a lot of the transition to helping our environment isn't exactly easy. This is because I'm sure a lot of you have seen statistics or just things talking about carbon emissions about like, oh, driving your vehicle gives X amount of carbon emissions. But do they just suddenly expect you to stop using your vehicle? Well, not exactly, because that's a really unrealistic scenario. So what we essentially do is we use a Llama API to generate a list of ways where you can make small changes in your own routine, yet still make a big difference overall on your carbon footprint. So this is essentially it. And also we had a bunch of future ideas. Obviously, I talked about the big three of our daily routines carbon footprint. Although the problem is there's also a lot of other things outside of that. Although I'm pretty sure this is a little self-explanatory, but running a multi-billion-dollar AI on a 5-year-old MacBook isn't exactly stuff for success. Although we definitely do have a bunch of ideas for the future. Although that's it for us, and now we're going on to the demo.
All right, so this is like the beta 1.0 version because the other one doesn't really work yet. So per miles per week, I guess I drive like 100 miles. And I guess I don't eat that much beef because I like the environment. And then just I guess I use some low power. Oh shoot, that's actually pretty high power. But anyway, I'm done putting in my emissions for this. And Llama's a little slow, but it gives us some feedback, and for some reason this time it's giving pretty bad feedback. It just gives us like the overall, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, and that's it for our presentation. Thank you. Have any questions or?
Sure.
So thank you for the presentation. You started the presentation by asking the room whether they knew the impact of their action and emission. And I think I didn't look back, but I suspect that most of the room said no, right? Or so how do you jump from that to the conclusion that people will care?
Because okay, he did most of the context, but the problem is climate change is a really big problem. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room knows about it. But it's not a big enough problem where people would suddenly cut meat out of their diet or stop driving to work. So our tool, while pretty simple, its goal is to help you make small changes in your routine that have an overarching goal of just bettering our environment.
there's the small incremental changes in behavior that make it more accessible. So even if people don't necessarily have a drive to care, the fact that it's a small step will make them change.
Yeah, that's essentially the main idea. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sharia. I just wanted to start out with a personal story, right? So I have a younger sister. There's a pretty big age gap between us. She's like 7 years younger than me. And I remember growing up, I wanted to teach her all sort of stuff, right? Like I wanted to teach her, like I had dreams about teaching her. I want to teach her how to bike. I want to teach her how to read. I want to teach her all these like nursery rhymes and stuff. And one thing that, I definitely did, I claimed to teach her, and, I definitely did teach her, was numbers, right? I taught her how to write all the numbers, and, I'm proud of it. She's older now, obviously. She's gonna be 11 this year, but I can always claim that I taught her how to write numbers. So, and, when we got the prompt of innovation in AI, I really thought, I was thinking, okay, what could I do? It should be something complex, right? Like I have to do something that's really innovative. And I just thought that maybe just the simple things can make the biggest impact, right? So from there, I came up with the idea of Number Quest, and kind of going more into the purpose here. So a lot of children, while they're growing up, up to like elementary school, a lot of children don't have access to resources. Maybe their parents are working many jobs and don't have time to give them resources to help them, learn numbers or develop strong motor skills to be able to write numbers, memorize numbers. And that puts them behind when they enter kindergarten, right? And we obviously, living in the Bay Area, many of us won't realize it, but it is pretty prevalent in the US. And it's something that I thought, okay, maybe if I could teach my sister how to write numbers, maybe I could help other young children learn how to write numbers, other toddlers. So that's why I developed this app, and it teaches children how to write numbers through guided practice, harnessing machine learning. And it is able to reinforce recognition skills. When I do the demo, I'll demonstrate everything here, but it's able to provide immediate feedback using machine learning. That's kind of what makes it unique from, other resources you may find online for toddlers. Its usage of machine learning. And I prioritize from the start a self-paced interactive environment. So this was my initial prototype. So I thought to myself, okay, if I'm going to develop a number model, right? Or if I'm going to develop a model that's able to train children how to write numbers when they're really young. First of all, they're going to be writing it like this, right? They're going to be, they're going to use a mobile app. They're going to be writing it with their fingers, right? So okay, let me first try to develop an app where you can trace it out with your fingers, just a number identifier app. And I wanted to demonstrate that first. So actually it's an iOS. I developed it with Swift. So it's an iOS app. So I'll have to mirror my phone onto my computer, but show you through that. So this was the number identifier app. Second. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me mirror my phone because it's not, for some reason, it's not connecting to my phone. This is my code, by the way. I have the app on my phone. I don't know, it's not connecting to my phone for some reason, but I have the app on my phone. So let me mirror my phone. I want to download the full app instead of just the identifier.
Yeah, because your time's up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay, so all right. Okay. So this was the initial prototype, and sorry. Oh, I just need to, I can still hold them right way. I got it. Yeah. All right. Okay, but so I can't really demonstrate it now due to time constraints, but that was the original app, and this was the method of development. I mentioned using Apple Swift software And I created a drawing pad through Swift AI. So Apple has this model called Swift AI, so I was able to integrate that into my code. And I used pre-trained MNIST. So Apple has this model called MNIST, and I had to import Core ML to integrate MNIST. I had to integrate the model into my code, and I use that to integrate the model, and it basically is able to recognize these numbers. And I created buttons to make it more of an interactive environment. So let me demonstrate phone where I go. So learn your numbers, write it to here, right? Check, correct, and clear it here. Demonstrate one more, an 8, correct. All right. And really quickly, this is my code. This is my code for developing that. I had I had content view, which kind of developed like the home screen, and I created practice view, which was like the page you would see. But obviously when you're practicing, when you click on the actual button, you go to the practice screen, you would see that page. And I created the drawing pad, obviously, which is the white canvas, which is like interactive. You go there, you can click a button to clear it. So yeah, and really quickly, these were some of my additions to the final app. I developed a level-based practice system where users can choose a number to practice from the home screen, as you guys saw. I inverted so one problem I actually had with the original app is that it was getting a lot of numbers wrong, because I didn't realize this until I researched a little more about Apple's model, but they actually invert the numbers. So for example, like a 6, they were saying it was a 9. So then I did a lot of research, I did some programming, and I was able to invert the images to make every number accurate. And I was able to provide correct, as you guys saw, correct or incorrect on the numbers drawn. And some of the future improvements I hope to make, I hope to improve the UI UX design by adding child-friendly animations and sound. I hope to be able to provide voice feedback and a lot of things you see on children's or apps for toddlers, apps for children, which like it makes a noise when you get it right. It says great job. So that's the sort of stuff I wanted to add. And one thing I really wanted to do is expand my app, because I know this is an important cause for children to be able to be caught up when they go to kindergarten with their peers. So for example, adding letter recognition, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's it for my presentation.
Okay, so in the meantime, the judges will evaluate the projects, and also for the participants, please stay in this room because Rithik will give a talk on competitive programming.
Oh. The idea with competitive programming is like talking about what modern programming is actually becoming. So in my opinion, like any task requires you to do like 2 things. And one thing is an ability to reason, and the other thing is a knowledge of patterns. So if you think about that in programming, the first thing would be figuring out what to code, and then the second thing would be how to code it, the syntax that goes into it. So I think competitive programming really it abstracts away the second aspect. You don't need to know the syntax and stuff, and it really emphasizes the ability to reason, which I think is becoming more and more important. So I think like with programming, you can learn syntax, but then when you but if you instead build like a logical foundation first, then that logical foundation transfers to any other task you do. So you become automatically good at a bunch of other things. And then you can build syntax on top of that. And then wherever you go, like it won't matter because you'll have that logical foundation. I think a good example of this is like a lot of companies, a lot of startups that some of my friends are working at have told me that the companies don't care about what frameworks you know. They don't care if you can like code in React or code in like TypeScript and stuff. They only care about if you can like their philosophy is that if you're smart enough, they'll hire you because you can do whatever in the future. Okay, so we're gonna do like some sample like competitive programming problems. So the first one is you have 2 teams playing basketball, and every time they score like 1 point, and you have like a string like this which tells you whether like team A or team B scored. And your goal at the end, and the game ends when a team scores 21 points. So the goal of this problem is to tell me who won the game in like the fastest time possible. So it's like kind of like a logic puzzle. You guys can think about it. You guys can obviously count all the B's and A's, but that's pretty difficult. So does anyone have any like other ideas? You? Or you're raising your hand, sorry. Do you have an idea?
Yeah, the game ends with the person who goes last because they get to 21 points.
Exactly. So the winner of the game is just whoever went last. So in this case, it would be B. So I think like he's thinking like pretty critically, like he's exploiting the inherent structure of the problem. Game ends when there's 21 points. So now like the solution to this problem is just output the last number. Okay, so we have like another sample problem. I think this is a pretty common problem to think about. But basically it's like I'm thinking of a number from 1 to 100. And you get to guess a number, and I'll tell you if it's above or below the number that I'm currently thinking about, and you have to try to guess my number as fast as possible. So if you were to do that, what would be your first guess? And why would you guess 50 first? Exactly. So you want to guess the number in between your current range to cut off as much as possible. So this is actually called a binary search. So you keep cutting off like half of the search space every time. So you guess 50 first, and then you like if I say it's under 50, then you guess like 25, right? And then you could keep going like that, and that would be as fast as possible. And I think that's like another thing to do, like look at. You're exploiting inherent structure in the problem. So now we're going to like an actually like this is like a pretty difficult problem, I think. So you guys might want to think about it, talk to each other. Basically, two people are playing a game, and there's a bunch of stones in a pile. And on your turn, you can take away a palindrome number of stones. So do you want to remind me what a palindrome is? Yeah, so in this case, it would be a number. So if you have like, say you have 25 stones. So on the first move, I could take away 22 stones. And then someone could take away like 2 stones because 2 is also a palindrome. And so on and so forth. So the person who wins the game is the person who like does the last move. So if you empty the pile, you win the game. So we can do a sample game just to get used to it. So let's say there's 20 stones to begin with. Does anyone want to go first and remove a palindrome from 20? Anyone? So do we get how the game works? So we can remove a palindrome from 20. So does anyone have a palindrome you want to remove from 20?
None.
So you remove 9 stones from 20. So now we have 11 stones and it's my turn. I want to remove 1 stone, which is a palindrome. So your turn?
I lost, yeah.
Yeah, he lost the game. So he chooses 6 stones and then I choose 4 stones. So the game makes sense to everyone. Like you remove a palindrome every time. And the question is effectively, if I give you an arbitrary number of stones and both players play optimally, who's going to win the game? So like for this like really massive number, can you guys like predict if 2 players play optimally, who's going to win and what the winning strategy becomes? So what I recommend is you guys look at really small numbers. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, and see who wins those games. And then try to build like intuition for the problem. So you guys like talk to each other. Think about it. That makes sense. Does it probably makes sense?
I also did like actually answer a single question. I used that. So for a couple of problems, we're looking at solutions. For a couple of them, there's just like a bunch of errors. After a place is going to so you just get learning some sort of
I don't know.
Wait, does anyone have any ideas for like how we can start? Okay, I guess the way you want to start thinking about a problem like this is try like small cases. So I guess like screw around basically. So if we have 1 stone in the pile, who's gonna win the game? Don't want to tell me?
The first one.
Yeah, so if you have one stone, the first player is gonna win. And if we have any single digit number of stones, the first player is gonna win, right? Because they just take all the stones. But then what happens once we get to 10? So who wins when we have 10 stones? Someone who who goes?
The second character.
So the second character wins if you have 10 stones, because 10 is the first number that's not a palindrome. So you take some other single digit number and you're left with you're left with a number that the second person can just win with. So to keep track of that, I kind of made Bessie is the person that goes first and Elsie goes second. So for 1 through 9, Bessie wins, and for 10, we have our first switch with Elsie. Does this make sense? Why the first player wins from 1 to 9, and then the second player wins for 10. So now if we want to go on to like 11, who do we think wins for like 11 stones? First player. So why do you think first player wins?
It's 11.
Yeah, so if you have 11, you can just take the 11 stones, then you win instantly. What about 12 stones? You take 2 stones, right? Or what do you say?
The second.
So why do you think the second player wins if you have 12 stones?
Oh, I know.
Why does the first player win if you have 12?
2 and
Exactly. Yeah. So if you have 12 stones, you just take 2 and then you have 10 and then you win, right? So for 12 stones, the first player wins again. What about 13?
First player wins.
So the first player wins with 13. So you're on a gameplay the 13. So you're the first player and we have 13 stones.
I remove 3 stones.
So now we have 10 and then I remove 5. So we have 5 and he wins with removing 5. So we kind of see a pattern here, right? So from 11 to 19, the first player is going to win, and then for 20, the second player is going to win again. So why would the second player win again at 20? Or you guys want to think about that for a little bit? So at 20 stones, you like. All right, I'll let that sink in for a little bit. Like, talk to each other.
It'd be the same case as you could just remove 11 stones.
because only if you take 10.
All right, does anyone like know why 20 stones would be the second player who wins the game? Anyone like have a guess? What's your guess?
Because you must take exactly 10. So you can think of reversing all those things for the first move. After you take the first move, 1 to 9 is all ease with houses and 11 to 19 is also houses. So you must take exactly 10
So he's saying like to visualize it, you can like after your first move, you want the opponent to be in a like an LC state, right? Because if the opponent is in an LC state, that means that they're going first, but the player going second wins. So you need to take exactly 10 to go from here to here, but you can't take 10 because that's not a palindrome. So if you guys screw around a bit more, you keep going, you realize that from 21 to 29, you can just take the units digit number of stones to make the player get back to 20 and then lose the game after that. So I feel like we see a pattern here. Like we see 10, 20, 30 with like Elsie winning, and the rest of it is with the first player winning. So does anyone have like a hypothesis for like the general solution?
Bessie or the first cow wins because the number ends with a 3.
Yeah, so the hypothesis is that like if the number ends in 0, the second player wins. If it ends in 1, the first player wins. So do you guys have like an idea of how to prove this hypothesis? What's your proof idea?
If I, let's just say B and B, because I don't know how.
Yeah.
So B is the first one. So for any number ending with 0, it's not possible. So because there's no starting being 0, it's for any number. So for each move you take, if it's not 0, make it 0. So you can guarantee that E cannot end. And after you take it, there's no way it still into 0 because you cannot take a number or get it into 0. So it must become not 0. So then you make it 0.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, this is like why this is my favorite problem of like all time. Basically, it's such a nice solution. The problem seems really hard, but basically it rests on like these two facts. First of all, if the number ends in 0 right now, you can't win instantly because the number has to start with a 0 for it to be a palindrome. But then that can't happen because numbers don't start with 0. So if your number ends in 0, you can't win right now. Secondly, if your number doesn't end with 0, you can make it end with 0 for your opponent. So you can take away just take away the units digit, and now your opponent is left with a number that doesn't end with 0. Or that ends with 0. So you maintain this property that the number has to end with 0, force that on your opponent. So if your starting number doesn't end with 0 like this, I can always just remove the units digit and make sure my opponent won't win. And if the number starts by ending with 0, then I lose because I can't make that number also end with 0 later. So the first player to have a number ending with 0 loses the game. Does that make sense? It's like you maintain this property that the number ends with 0, and you keep maintaining that over time. Hopefully that made sense to like some of you. But these are the types of problems that like competitive programming usually deals with. And the way that it helps you assess like how to think as a programmer is that it like goes with a lot of like fundamentals of like programming. One being doing like small cases like we talked about, like screwing around with edge cases, like why are the tens interesting? Looking at patterns. And it also like makes you think about like do large palindromes even matter? Like in our solution, we didn't even touch upon like 11 or 22 or 33. So a lot of times like there's these really complicated parts of like code bases or things like that don't really matter in the end. The problem is really simple, like at a lower level, much simpler. So yeah, I think after you solve a problem, you should always think about how you could have thought of the solution. So if you guys want to, you guys can like reflect on what the solution we figured out and like how we got there. But basically, now I want to talk to why competitive programming is useful. So how to get hired as a programmer 101. I'm unemployed, so don't take my advice. But basically, I think companies ask competitive programming questions in interviews. I don't know if you've heard leak code, but companies ask leak code questions in their interviews, and this is basically competitive programming. And they don't care if you know algorithms or data structures. They don't care about that type of knowledge. What they actually care about is whether you know how to problem solve. And that's why I think you guys should do competitive programming. With these types of problems, like doing more of them teaches you how to think in a way that like that can never be taken away from you in the future. And if you do like competitive programming as a way to like express your ability to think, it'll take you pretty far, I think. And yeah, I guess the main takeaway is like employers like hire like competitive programmers. Like startups will hire people just because they're good at competitive programming, not because they know like they've developed like 5 different apps on the App Store. So competitive programming is like competitions you can do, like USICO is for high schoolers. There's Leak Code and Code Forces. I'm like top 0.2% on Leak Code, so I think I'm pretty good at that. And I'm also like a USICO finalist, so I'm like top 25 in the US for that. So if you have any questions about this, you can like let me know. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions about the problem or like anything they want to know about competitive programming? Yeah, in general, I just encourage you guys to like try it out because I think like it's also like an objective metric because you can like develop something, but being a good competitive programmer, like I can tell you that like I'm top 0.2% on Leak Code. So like that's something you can like go out there and tell people, which also makes it better to do. Yeah. But anyways, if you have any questions, let me know.
So, you mentioned you are very good in the lead code, right?
Yeah.
And I can feel it. So, in the complexity space, you always look for high complexity as the space with the complexity, right? Have you ever kind of very hard grading of complexity with the GPUs introduced? past 5 to 7 years?
That's interesting. Maybe I've never thought about that, but I think yeah, that's something. Maybe in the future they have like GPUs on competitive programming, but
Well, maybe you can save in the space, but you may save in the time, but you are ruining your CPU or GPU, right? So if you, because now you have multiple GPUs, you can think of, okay, I want to comfort my GPU and I want to compromise a little in the time and the space.
yeah, so I guess you're like saying like okay, you might develop a highly parallelizable algorithm, then your like GPU complexity goes down, but your time complexity goes up. Maybe I think that could be a avenue. I don't know. I don't know how important that would be to like integrate. I feel like it'd be hard to integrate into like modern contests and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah like GPU complexity of the algorithms. Yeah.
What are some programming languages you would offer or like suggest to a beginner? And how long on this language would you say that you can explore further?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Go
So
on.
so usually you want to use like a fast language because competitive programming they want you to write code that runs efficiently. So use like C++ or Java. And I think like I learned C++ for like a couple months before starting. And I don't think you need to be very expert in it. You don't have to develop any big projects in it. It's I think the main focus is on the like logical thinking part. No one cares about or well, they care a little bit, but you don't care too much about implementation and debugging. Those are things you have to do, but that's not the focus. What's going on? Yeah, does anyone else have any questions? Oh, yeah, I can.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.